As far as London trams are concerned, the crowning glory, the centrepiece, if you like, was the Kingsway subway. It was an underground tunnel in the heart of London, the only place in the world where double-deck trams ran underground. And when I was thinking about tram layout, it seemed to be an ideal subject. Everybody seems to have, who has seen the Kingsway in real life, has really remembered it. The drop as the tram went down the ramp, a very steep 1 in 10 slope, was likened to going down a switchback railway at the fairground. There was a contemporary item in a newspaper where the columnist suggested that kids at half-term be taken up to London to experience the ride down. All sorts of people have told me all sorts of things that they can remember about their life on the Kingsway subway. One man, then a little boy of 6 or 7 years old, told me that he would regularly go up there with his sandwiches out for the day to spend some time watching the trams, and he would stand next to the pointsman's hut just under Waterloo Bridge and share his sandwiches with the pointsman, who would then very kindly let him have a pull of the point lever. The pointsman had to stand there all day long to make sure that the correct tram was diverted into the tunnel and the other trams were allowed to go along the embankment. He obviously enjoyed having the little boy there to help him out, and the opportunity of a free sandwich as well, I guess. It's a subject where most of it's underground. How do you show that? The bits I had to show, of course, were the entrances at either end. I did a sectional view of one of the stations as well. And then, of course, loads and loads of buildings on the top, which is what you can see. The buildings are still there very much as they were when the layout was depicted in 1951. So I was able to take real-life photographs and refer from those when I was making the models. I had a day up there to take photographs. I took my wife up as well, and if you pose your wife in front of the building, you know how tall your wife is, and you can measure off the height of the building accordingly. So it's all done by sizing out from a known height like that. I mean, very much done by eye. At the end of the day, if it looks right, it is right. A set of architectural drawings would have been very nice to work from, but you know, we don't have that luxury. A lot of people that see the layout recognise it. They perhaps worked in the office round the corner or something, and are able to recognise the environment from the buildings that are there. The buildings themselves are in the main constructed from plasticard, cut out as appropriate, windows put in behind and painted, of course. I've taken 1 or 2 liberties with the size of the buildings. City buildings are huge. You don't realise how huge they are until you actually start measuring out the size and counting the floors and the windows and so on. So there are a couple of bits where I've missed out a floor, or I've missed out a couple of bays of the building, just to make them a more manageable size. It's surprising how even now, the layout's been in existence for a year or 2 now, you occasionally get another shot that just comes to your hands from somewhere or other, and it just shows an extra little detail that you've missed. A sign on the railings perhaps that you haven't seen before, or some detail like that. The few tramways that were allowed in the centre of London were allowed in very much on the proviso that they weren't going to sully the environs with overhead wires. And so the London County Council that built the London tramways, or the greater part of them, was forced to adopt a very, very expensive method of the underground conduit system. From the top there's a slot in between the running rails. this slot is where the plough would rest. It's a device that was connected underneath the tram, and it would draw power from two underground rails underground the centre slot, and that would power the tram. So in the centre of London there were none of those unsightly overhead wires. Once trams had been through the centre of London and were out into more leafy surroundings, into Brixton and places like that, they weren't so fussy about not having the overhead wires, so the tram had to change from the conduit system to the overhead wire system. And every day, every passage of every single tram, as the tram came down from London, it would reach the plough change point. The plough would shoot out the side of the tram. The conductor would at the same time raise the trolley boom on the roof up to the wire. The driver would switch the appropriate switch and then continue on the overhead wire. The fact that the tram had to pause and hold up traffic behind was just part of everyday life. It's been really good to take the layout to exhibitions. Sometimes people who have no knowledge of the Kingsway subway as such recognise the environment. They perhaps have worked in the offices around the corner or have come out of Holborn Tube Station and recognise the buildings, and yet had no knowledge that that mysterious opening in the middle of the road ever had trams running up and down. Hopefully, thanks to the layout, now they know what it was all about.